Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Luckiest Peach podcast. I'm your host, Rachel, the Lucky Peach. It's been a long ass week. I'm not even gonna lie. I do not remember recording or even uploading last week's episode. All I know is that it happened. I mentioned this last week, but I was on a film set all week. Yeah, so the only thing I really remember from last week is that. And that's about it. We wrapped that. I'm really glad we wrapped it because it was exhausting. But at the same time, it's really bittersweet because it's exhausting and stressful, but also like you want to keep hanging out with the new friends you made. But the good thing is you make those new friends and they're all interested in the same thing as you. So that leads to more opportunities to work together in the future. Um, yeah, nothing else really interesting has happened. Other than that, if you look at Instagram, Lucky Peach, you'll see there's a new highlight on my profile from that, as well as my most recent post is photos from set. Uh, yeah, so now we move on to post production. Woo! Your boy gets to spend the next like 2 months editing audio, but because I have more time to do that compared to like the little bit of time I had to, record everything that was happening on set, it'll be a lot stressful. I already know it's going to be a lot less stressful. Um, yeah, I will on Spotify. I don't think I added a question on Spotify on the episode last week, but I will add a question this week. If you would like me to have some of the cast and or crew from this film on an episode in the future, there will be a question there on Spotify. Or if you're not listening on Spotify, you can tweet me at Lucky Peach or email me at luckiestpeachpodcast@gmail.com and let me know. I appreciate any and all feedback. But as of now, yes, I am planning. I'm not exactly planning, but I'm hoping that I can get some of the cast and crew on an episode in the future. Yeah, but do let me know if that's something you're interested in, because I never really got a chance to have like a legit episode dedicated to talking about before I leave. Um, I think the reason I didn't is just because of how messy November was. If you've been here since November, you already know it was a hot mess. But also that was the period of time where Raul was on almost every week. So we pretty much were talking about before I leave anyways. Yeah, but yeah, do let me know if you would like an episode where I just hang out and talk with the cast and crew of Safe. That's the name of the film. Yeah, yeah. If you already want to go check out the stuff regarding the film, you can of course look at my Instagram, or you can look at 4381 Productions on Instagram. You'll find posts there. You'll see some on the highlight posts from the story highlights. You'll see some photos and pictures of ya boy. So yeah, that's enough of that. Nothing else interesting has happened other than I'm back at my day job and I hate it. You never realize that you hate your day job until you leave and go do something that's related to your aspiring career. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm not having a good time. But regardless, we are here. This is our second personal review. This is a review of something. This is a brand new slot, I guess, new topic that last month replaced drunk commentaries. There is a story behind that. I explained it last month. I don't feel like getting into it, but basically, things were just getting too complicated. So now I'm doing personal reviews, which are reviews of films that I have not seen that are in my personal Blu-ray collection. So basically movies that I bought the Blu-ray and just didn't watch them yet. So today, this one, I feel like I maybe should have held on to this because this could have been a Cult of the Month episode because this film is a cult classic. But this film, if you didn't read the title, it is Legend from 1985. Um, it is an American epic dark fantasy adventure film directed and initiated. I don't know what that means. By Ridley Scott. What does initiated mean? Like he came up with the idea? Or would it be like story by? I don't know. But Ridley Scott. Um, the film revolves around. No. We get to that in a minute. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll get all to that. We'll get to all that in a minute. Okay. Yeah. Since its premiere and subsequent release of the unrated director's cut, the film has become a cult classic. So, it is directed by Ridley Scott, written by William Hjortsberg. I apologize if I mispronounced that. Produced by Arnon Milchan. Cinematography by Alex Thompson. Edited by Terry Rawlings. The music is by Jerry Goldsmith and Tangerine Dream. I love Tangerine Dream. Wow. Production companies are Embassy International and Pictures NV. Oh no, it's Embassy International Pictures NV. I thought it was two different things. It's the same. It's just one really long title. In North America, it was distributed by Universal Pictures, and internationally, it was distributed by 20th Century Fox. Rest in peace. It released December 13th, 1985 in the UK, and in the United States, it released April 18th, 1986. The runtime, the director's cut runtime is 114 minutes. The international cut runtime is 93 minutes, and the United States cut runtime is 89 minutes. The budget was $24.5 million, and the box office fell just short at $23.5 million. Just short, just barely short. So, the plot. In order to cast the world into eternal light, the Lord of Darkness sends the goblin Blix on a mission to kill the unicorns in the forest near his castle that guard the light and bring him their horns. Blix and his colleagues Pox and Blunder follow impetuous Princess Lily as she visits her forest-dwelling paramour Jack O'Green, and she learns how to talk to animals from him. After many failed attempts to progress the relationship, Jack blindfolds and takes Lily to the lair of the unicorns. As Lily distracts the stallion by stroking him, Blix shoots him with a poison dart from his blowpipe and the unicorn flees. With the couple unaware of the goblins, Lily makes light of Jack's fears concerning her sin and sets him a challenge by throwing her ring into a pond, declaring that she will marry whoever finds it. While Jack dives in after the ring, the goblins find the dying stallion and sever its alicorn. An apocalyptic winter descends. Lily runs off in terror, and Jack is barely able to break through the surface of the now frozen pond. Lily takes refuge in the frozen cottage of a kind and friendly family. There, Lily sees the goblins testing the alicorn's magical powers and overhears from them about how she had a role in their slaying of the stallion, and by doing so, casting the dark winter onto the world. She follows the goblins into a rendezvous with Darkness, who tells them the world cannot be cast into eternal night as long as the surviving mayor still lives. Blunder valiantly but unsuccessfully tries to using the alicorn to overthrow Darkness and is taken away to his castle. Meanwhile, Jack, accompanied by the forest elf Honeythorn Gump, the fairy Una, and the dwarves Brown Tom and Screwball, finds the mayor mourning the lifeless stallion. Lamenting over his role in their current predicament, Jack apologizes to the mayor, who tells him the alicorn must be recovered and returned to the stallion. Leaving Brown Tom to guard the unicorns, Jack and the others retrieve a hidden cache of ancient weapons and armor. While they are gone, Lily tries to make things right by helping to save the mayor from the goblins, but they overpower Brown Tom and capture both the mayor and Lily. Learning of what has transpired, Jack and his group make their way to the castle in the middle of a swamp. On the way, they are nearly killed by a swamp hag named Meg Mucklebones, but defeat her by flattering her appearance and then decapitating her. After reaching the castle, Jack's group falls into an underground prison cell in a hellish kitchen. They encounter a Blunder in the same cell, revealed to be an elf gone astray, before he is dragged off by an ogre cook to be baked into a pie. Una uses her magic to escape their cell and retrieves the keys to free the others. Having fallen in love with Lily, Darkness tempts her with jewelry, a beautiful dress, and promises of power and glory. Seemingly seduced, she agrees to wed him under the condition that she will be the one to kill the mayor in the upcoming ritual. Overhearing their conversation, Jack and Gump learn that darkness can be destroyed by daylight. After saving Blunder, the group takes the ogre's giant metal platters as makeshift mirrors to reflect the sunlight to the chamber where the mayor is to be sacrificed. As the ritual begins, Lily frees the mayor but is knocked out by darkness, while the others relay the light of the setting sun using platters. Jack fights darkness in combat, finally wounding him with the severed alicorn. As the redirected sunlight blasts him to the edge of a void, darkness warns them that because evil lurks in all beings, he will never truly be vanquished. Jack hesitates as he realizes this to be true, but overcomes his doubt and severs the evil hand holding the alicorn, thus expelling darkness into the void. Gump returns the stallion's horn, returning him to life and ending the winter. Jack retrieves the mystic ring from the pond and returns it to Lily, returning her to life. So, there are also 3 different alternate endings. The first one is in the director's cut. Lily wakes with Jack trying to convince her she was merely dreaming, but she is ultimately unconvinced. They confess their true love for each other, but realize they lived in 2 different lifestyles, which causes Lily to request continuing a merely platonic relationship. Jack, happy with this request for the first time, accepts. Lily returns to her home to assume her responsibilities, promising to visit him again. Jack happily runs off into the sunset, hailed by the forest fairies and revived unicorns. In the American theatrical version, Jack and Lily assure each other of their love and watch the unicorns reunite, and they run off into the sunset together, hailed by the forest fairies and the unicorns. Darkness watches them from the void, laughing. In the European version, it also ends with Jack and Lily running off into the sunset, but without Darkness's final appearance. So the cast. So we have pre-orthodontic work Tom Cruise as Jack O'Green, the Green Man of the Forest. I fucking hate that. Mia Sara as Princess Lily. If you don't recognize that name, she is a queen. She played Sloane in Ferris Bueller. Mia Sara is one of the most gorgeous women I've ever seen. And then as the Lord of Darkness, my king, my zaddy, Tim Curry. And then David Bennett as Honeythorn Gump, an elf and the guardian of the forest. Alice Payton as Blix, the leader of the Darkness's goblin minions. Billy Barty as Screwball. Cork Hubbard as Brown Tom. Peter O'Farrell as Pox. Annabelle Lanyon as Una. Kieran Shaw as Blunder. Robert Picardo as Meg Mucklebones. Alice Payton is also the uncredited voice of Gump because an executive thought that Bennon's voice sounded too German. What? That's wild. So, while filming The Duelists in France, Ridley Scott conceived Legend after another planned project. Tristan and Isolde fell through temporarily. However, he believed that it would be an art film with limited audience appeal and went on to make Alien and did pre-production work on Dune, another halted project, which was eventually finished by David Lynch. Frustrated, he came back to the idea of filming a fairy tale or a mythological story. For inspiration, Scott read all of the classic fairy tales, including ones by the Brothers Grimm. From that, he conceived a story about a young hermit who is transformed into a hero when he battles the darkness in order to rescue a beautiful princess and release the world from a wintry curse. Scott wanted Legend to have an original screenplay because he believed that it was, quote, it was far easier to design a story to fit the medium of cinema than bend the medium for an established story, end quote. By chance, he discovered several books written by American novelist William Hjortsberg and found that the writer had already written several scripts for some unmade, lower-budgeted films. Scott asked him if he was interested in writing a fairy tale. He was already writing some and agreed. Scott remembers, quote, the first notion was to actually make a classical fairy story, but if you actually analyze the classical fairy story, most are either very short or very complex, end quote. The two men bonded over Jean Cocteau's 1946 film of Beauty and the Beast, In January 1981, just before beginning principal photography on Blade Runner, Scott spent 5 weeks with Hjortsberg working out a rough storyline for what was then called Legend of Darkness. I kind of like that title better. Originally, Scott, quote, only had the vague notion of something in pursuit of the swiftest steed alive, which, of course, was the unicorn, end quote. Scott felt that they should have a quest and wanted unicorns as well as magic armor and a sword. Hjortsberg suggested plunging the world into a wintry darkness. Hjortsberg's first draft of Legend of Darkness also had Princess Lily slowly transform into a clawed and fur-covered beast who is whipped and sexually seduced by the antagonist. Oh my god. And the antagonist was called Baron Coeur de Noir in the draft. Scott wanted to show the outside world as little as possible, and they settled on the clockmaker's cottage. Initially, the quest was longer, but it was eventually substantially reduced. Scott wanted to avoid too many subplots that departed from the main story and go for a, quote, more contemporary movement rather than get bogged down in too classical a format, end quote. By the time Scott had finished Blade Runner, he and Hjortsberg had a script that was, quote, lengthy, hugely expensive, and impractical in its size and scope, end quote. They went through it and took out large sections that were secondary to the story. The two men went through 15 script revisions. The look Scott envisioned for Legend was influenced by the style of Disney animation. He had even offered the project to Disney, but they were intimidated by the film's dark tone at a time when Disney still focused on family-friendly material. Visually, Scott referenced films like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Fantasia, and Pinocchio. The look of Legend was also influenced by the art of Arthur Rackham and Heath Robinson. Scott had initially sought the services of conceptual designer Brian Froud, but was turned down. He then hired Alan Lee as a visual consultant who drew some characters and sketched environments. However, Scott eventually replaced Lee with Asheton Gordon, a production designer who he had wanted for both Alien and Blade Runner. Scott hired Gordon because he knew, quote, all the pitfalls of shooting exteriors on a soundstage. We both knew that whatever we did would never look absolutely real, but would very quickly gain its own reality and dispense with any feeling of theatricality, end quote. Scott also consulted with effects expert Richard Enland because the director did not want to limit major character roles to the number of smaller people who would act. At one point, the director considered Mickey Rooney to play one of the major characters, but he did not look small enough next to Tom Cruise. Oh my god. That's kind of fucked up. Edlund considered shooting on 70mm film stock, taking the negative and reducing the actors to any size they wanted, but this was deemed too expensive. Thus, Scott was tasked with finding an ensemble of small actors. Legend would be financed with a budget of $24.5 million and would be distributed by Universal Pictures in North America and by 20th Century Fox, rest in peace, in all other territories. In order to achieve the look of Legend that he wanted, Scott scouted locations in the sequoias of Yosemite National Park to see the grand scale of trees there. Quote, the whole environment is so stunning, it was so impressive, but I didn't know how you would control it, end quote. However, it would cost too much to shoot on location, and he decided to build a forest set on the 007 stage, named after and used for many James Bond films at Pinewood Studios. The crew spent 14 weeks constructing the forest set, and Scott was worried that it would not look real enough. It was only days before the start of principal photography that it looked good enough to film. The trees were 60 feet high, with trunks 30 feet in diameter, and were sculpted out of polystyrene built onto tubular scaffolding frames. In addition, other sets were constructed on 5 huge sound stages. Johnny Depp, Jim Carrey, and Robert Downey Jr. were considered for the role of Jack, while Scott was considering Richard O'Brien to play Meg Mucklebones. He watched the Rocky Horror Picture Show and saw Tim Curry. He thought the actor would be ideal to play Darkness because the actor had film and theatrical experience. Tim Curry's makeup as Darkness in Legend is considered to be one of the most iconic images in all of fantasy cinema. That is absolute facts. Scott discovered Mia Sara in a casting session and was impressed by her, quote, good theatrical instincts, end quote. Scott contacted Rob Bottin, who designed the special makeup effects for The Howling, about working on Blade Runner, but Bottin was already committed to John Carpenter's The Thing. Scott told him about Legend, and toward the end of production on The Thing, Bottin read a script for the film and saw an excellent opportunity to create characters in starring roles. After wrapping his work with Carpenter, Botten met with Scott to reduce the thousands of creatures suggested by the script to a manageable quantity. The process would involve complicated prosthetic makeup that would be worn for up to 60 days, with some full-body prosthetics. According to Botten, at the time, Legend was the largest makeup crew ever dedicated to one project. Botten divided his faculty into different shops in order to cover the immense workload. As actors were cast, Botten and his crew began making life casts and designed characters on drafting paper laid over sketches of the actors' faces. He designed the prosthetics in his Los Angeles studio and spent some time in England occasionally helping with the application of makeup. With the exception of Cruz and Sarah, all the principal actors spent hours every morning having extensive makeup applied. Between 8 and 12 prosthetic pieces were applied individually to each face, then made up, molded, and grafted into the actor's face so that the prosthetics moved with their muscles. Each person needed 3 makeup artists working on them for an average time of 3.5 hours spent applying prosthetics. Actor Tim Curry took 5.5 hours because his entire body was encased in makeup. It was damn good makeup, too. The film's most challenging character design. Curry had to wear a large bull-like structure atop his head with 3-foot fiberglass horns supported by a harness underneath the makeup. The initial design of the horns placed a strain on the back of the actor's neck because they extended forward and not straight up, but Botten and his crew eventually reduced the weight of the horns. At the end of the day, he spent an hour in a bath in order to liquefy the soluble spirit gum. At one point, Curry became claustrophobic, got too impatient, and pulled the makeup off too quickly, tearing his own skin in the process. Scott had to shoot around the actor for a week as a result. Jesus Christ. I mean, understandable. You work around Tim Curry. He doesn't work around you, you work around him. Principal's photography began on March 26, 1984 on the 007 stage at Pinewood Studios. On June 27, 1984, with 10 days filming left on this stage, the entire set burned down during a lunch break. Reportedly, flames from the set fire leapt more than 100 feet into the air, and the clouds of smoke could be seen 5 miles away. It occurred during lunchtime, and no one was hurt. Scott quickly made changes to the shooting schedule and only lost 3 days moving to another soundstage. Meanwhile, the art department rebuilt the section of the forest set that was needed to complete filming. Due to the fire, the scenes of Lily meeting the unicorns for the first time and finding the cottages in the snow were filmed in the garden of the main house behind Shepperton Studios. The underwater scenes were filmed in Silver Springs, Florida for the purity of the water. Cruz did all of his own diving and swimming in waters that, according to Scott, had real alligators 25 feet from where they were filming. Scott's first cut of Legend ran 125 minutes long. He then believed there were minor plot points that could be trimmed and cut the film down to 113 minutes, so he tested this version for an audience in Orange County. However, it was decided that the audience had to work too much to be entertained, and another 20 minutes was cut. The 95-minute version was shown in Great Britain, and then the film was cut down even further to 89 minutes for North America. At the time, Scott said, quote, "European audiences are more sophisticated. They accepted preambles and subtleties, whereas US goes for a much broader stroke," end quote. That's true. He and Universal delayed the North American theatrical release until 1986 so that they could replace Jerry Goldsmith's score with music by Tangerine Dream, Yes leader John Anderson, and Brian Ferry. Scott allowed Goldsmith's score to remain on European prints, and the composer said, quote, "that this dreamy, bucolic setting is suddenly to be scored by a techno-pop group seems sort of strange to me," end quote. Normally, Goldsmith would spend 6 to 10 weeks on a film score, but for Legend, he spent 6 months writing songs and dance sequences ahead of time. In 2000, Universal unearthed an answer print of the 113-minute preview cut with Jerry Goldsmith's score. The print had minor visual anomalies that were eventually digitally replaced, occasionally with finished shots from the 89-minute US version. This edition is Scott's preferred 2002 director's cut with a restored Jerry Goldsmith soundtrack. The director's cut's source is one of only 2 prints of this extended version known to exist, used for Universal's 2002 DVD and eventual Blu-ray Ultimate Edition. I was doing so good at talking for most of this, and now I'm starting to blah, 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 trip over my words. Legend received mixed reviews. It currently holds a 40% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, based on 43 reviews with an average rating of 5 out of 10. The consensus reads, quote, "Not even Ridley Scott's gorgeously realized set pieces can save Legend from its own tawdry tale, though it may be serviceable for those simply looking for fantasy eye candy," end quote. Steve Biodrowski of Cinefantastique praised the film, highlighting the makeup design by Rob Bottin and Tim Curry's performance as Darkness, saying that, quote, "Because of the visuals and Curry's performance, which is mostly limited to the last 20 minutes, the film is worth seeing," end quote. Widget Walls of needcoffee.com also praised the film, once again highlighting Button's makeup, focusing on the character of Darkness, saying simply that, quote, "Tim Curry's Darkness is absolutely incredible," end quote. I agree. Vincent Canby of the New York Times said that, quote, "It's a slapdash amalgam of Old Testament King Arthur, The Lord of the Rings, and any number of comic books," end quote. I agree with that. Kevin Thomas and of the Los Angeles Times praised the visuals as, quote, "a sumptuous, richly colored feast for cinematographer Alex Gordon's camera," end quote, but thought the film, quote, "surely could have used more humor and invention," end quote. I agree. Kim Newman of the Monthly Film Bulletin wrote that, quote, "Like Blade Runner before it, the film suffers too much from an overemphasis on details at the expense of the actual story that it becomes a plotting bore, end quote. I agree with that. That is a very common thing in Ridley Scott's films. He still does it. I'm not even going to lie. He still does this. He gives way too much detail that takes away from the plot, which is funny when you see that, like, they really took a lot out of the script so that it wouldn't be like that, and it still was. He just gets way too caught up in the side stuff. Basically, he still does. Continuing on though, Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune. Oh no, just Gene. Oh no, wait, never mind. Gave the film half of 1 star out of 4 and stated that that writing the review was, quote, "akin to recalling a bad dream," end quote, concluding that, quote, "I don't want to remember any more about Legend than to make sure I include it in my worst films of 1986 list and never rent it when it comes out as a video cassette," end quote. Yikes. The film has been described as, quote, "extinction event." Oh, it has been described as the extinction event that discouraged Hollywood from making fantasy films. Jesus Christ. I mean, that makes a lot of fucking sense. I'm not gonna lie, that makes a lot of fucking sense. Roger Ebert, the Luckiest Peach's least favorite person, of the Chicago Sun-Times praised Botton's makeup and Aston Gordon's set design and the performances of Tim Curry and Tom Cruise, but noted that the effects were so good that the roles could have been played by almost anyone. I agree. Actually, I do agree. Ebert also said that the movie was composed of all the right ingredients to be successful, but that the film simply doesn't work. He went on to say that, quote, "all of the special effects in the world and all of the great makeup and all of the great Muppet creatures can't save a movie that has no clear idea of its own mission and no joy in its own accomplishment," end quote. However, I actually agree with him. How many times in the history of this podcast have I agreed with Roger Ebert? However, with the release of the 2002 director's cut, he agreed with many fans on how it was intended to question the balance between good and evil and gives the main characters moral flaws to display the imperfections of humans. The release of the director's cut in 2002 also had the original score from Jerry Goldsmith restored and brought renewed attention to the film. Both Ridley Scott and Tom Cruise have requested their fans to view this version, even to the extent of Cruise disowning the US version entirely as a stereotypical 80s fantasy. He's right. Neil Gaiman reviewed Legend for Imagine magazine and stated that, quote, "glimmers of intelligence, show here and there in the script, suggesting that William Hjortsberg probably had some idea of what he was doing when he wrote this, understanding that fairies are willful, capricious creatures, for example, and he'll probably make a fairly good novel out of it. But if you go and see the film, don't say I didn't warn you, end quote. And that is why we love Neil Gaiman, an icon. Audiences surveyed by CinemaScore gave the film a grade of C+. Due to the changes in the film from its European and American releases, Legend has two different soundtracks. The first, produced, composed, and conducted by Jerry Goldsmith, was used for its initial European release and restored in the director's cut edition of the Region 1 DVD release. The second soundtrack, it features music by German electronic artists Tangerine Dream, and was used for the initial theatrical and home video releases in the United States. This soundtrack also includes songs by John Anderson of Yes and Brian Ferry of Roxy Music. The following songs are featured in the European and director's cuts, with lyrics composed by John Bettis, who composed many of Carpenter's songs, and music, of course, by Jerry Goldsmith. I've said his name a lot. My True Love's Eyes, which is the main theme, sung mostly by Lily. Mia Sarah provided some of the singing, while session singers provided vocals wherever Sarah was unable to perform. Living River, the first reprise of My True Love's Eyes, sung as Lily Calls to the Unicorn. Bumps and Hollows, sung by Lily after her forbidden act of touching the unicorn. Sing the Wee, the theme for the fairies. The first sung version was cut from all editions of the film as it accompanied a scene with Jack and the Fairies that was itself cut. The final sung version by the National Philharmonic Chorus is heard over the end credits. Reunited, the final reprise of My True Love's Eyes, sung by Lily as she says goodbye to Jack. The following songs appeared in the 89-minute US recut when it was re-scored by Tangerine Dream. Love by the Sun, music by Tangerine Dream, lyrics are written and sung by John Anderson. Is Your Love Strong Enough, written and performed by Brian Ferry over the US Prince end credits. A promotional music video, presumably for the US market, where the Tangerine Dream soundtrack was used, was created for the Brian Ferry song Is Your Love Strong Enough? I don't know why I said long. The video, which incorporates Ferry and guitarist David Gilmour into footage from the film, is included as a bonus disc on disc 2 of the 2002 Ultimate Edition DVD release. In 2002, Universal re-released the 113-minute director's cut on Region 1 DVD, restoring previously cut scenes in the original Goldsmith score. How many times is that going to pop up in this article? Jesus Christ. Oh, there's more. It's going to show up again, and I'm going to say it again. Take a shot every time I say Goldsmith. The director's cut was quote. This is a quote from Charles de Lauzirica. Quote, the director's cut was a nightmare to track down. In doing research on this, I have been in contact with a certifiable Legend fanatic named Sean Murphy, who runs the Legend FAQ, along with Jeff Wright, and based in part on his info, had a lot of background from Legend editor Terry Rawlings. I realized that we were looking for one of the three cuts. Credit really needs to be given to Garth Thomas for breaking the case, and I should thank also Sean Murphy, Jeff Wright, and Paul McLean for all of their support, end quote. Universal released a Blu-ray version of the Ultimate Edition on May 31st, 2011, with the exception of the 2002 DVD-ROM features. RIP. Rest in peace, DVD-ROM. This disc carries over all the content from the DVD, including the Jerry Goldsmith score director's cut and the Tangerine Dream scored theatrical version. In the 1980s, Warner Home Video released Legend on VHS in the UK. 20th Century Studios, the international rights holder via Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures, has released a Blu-ray issue for Region 2 of both the 94-minute European version and the 113-minute director's cut, both with, guess what? Jerry Goldsmith's music. In September 2021, the film was reissued yet again by Arrow Films. Hell yeah. Fuck yeah. under license by Universal, as a 2-disc limited edition, including the 2 major cuts of the movie, theatrical and director's cuts with their respective corresponding scores. Thank you, Wikipedia, for just now saying that at the end of the article. With nearly all the bonus content from the previous Universal releases, plus new documentaries on the film. The international version was not included on this new set, as the rights to that edition are held by the Walt Disney Company via the library of 20th Century Studios. Rest in peace, 20th Century. Also, another note, in the director's cut, Jack is depicted as a flawed person in love. That was a mouthful. I like that Wikipedia decided just to say respected corresponding scores in the last paragraph of the article, after I already said Jerry Goldsmith like 10 times. So yeah, the Arrow Blu-ray is the version, the copy that I have. I did, oh my god, my knee just popped really weird. Which version did I watch? I don't actually know, because I watched it on Amazon Prime because I was too lazy to put the Blu-ray in, but also I didn't have time to like sit down and put a Blu-ray in. I just needed to watch it for this, really. 90 minutes. Okay, which one was 90 minutes? Oh, the US version. So I watched the United States theatrical version. I have not seen the director's cut. I don't know that I will. This movie was kind of exhausting. I agreed with pretty much every single review that was in that from the critics. It's really, I think it's too nuanced, I guess. It felt like Tumblr. It was very Tumblr. And what year did Labyrinth come out? Let me look it up. Labyrinth. 1986. Okay, around the same time. Labyrinth is better. But like, if Legend feels like Labyrinth, and yeah, they were released around the same time, so that means that they like were being made at the same time. So I doubt there's any connection. But still, it's just it's too detailed for a fantasy film, which is saying a lot, because fantasy films are meant to be overly detailed. But this has too much going on, which is insane to like realize that like Ridley Scott still cut a lot out of the screenplay, and it's still too detailed. Still too much side shit going on. I'm not even gonna lie, it lost me in a lot of it. The only performances, in my opinion, that are actually worth noting are Mia Sara and Tim Curry. But Tim Curry can do no wrong. He quite literally, as trashy as the original It miniseries is, Tim Curry carries it on his back. And same thing with this film, Tim Curry fucking carries it on his back with the makeup artists. Like, he looks so good in this makeup, and it's like, I don't know who said it in the reviews, that like the makeup is so heavy that anybody could be playing these characters. It's true. There is a lot of fucking makeup, but you can tell it's a Tim Curry performance. You can just tell. Like, first of all, you can see he has very distinctive, like a very distinctive tooth shape, and his eyes are very distinctive, very, very wide, deep set, kind of almost bloodshot looking eyes. They're very unique. So if you just look at the face, you can tell it's Tim Curry under all that makeup, just looking at his eyes. He carries this movie. So I'm sure after he wrapped this, he had more back pain than I do right now after 4 days of shooting. He's an icon. Yeah. Here's a thing that I forgot to read. So, it wasn't a commercial success, obviously, but it won the British Society of Cinematographers Award for Best Cinematography in 1985 for Alex Thompson. as well as being nominated for multiple awards: the Oscar for Best Makeup, Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films Saturn Award for Best Makeup, BAFTA Awards for Best Costume Design, Best Makeup Artist, Best Visual Effects, DVD Exclusive Awards, and Young Artist Awards. Since its premiere and the subsequent release of the unrated director's cut, the film has become a cult classic. I think I already read that. Jesus Christ. Oh my god, Jerry Goldsmith also scored 5 of the films in the Star Trek franchise, the original Star Trek franchise, 3 of the Rambo films, Planet of the Apes, Logan's Run, which is a movie I've been meaning to review on the podcast for a long ass time. What else? Oh my god. Tora Tora Tora, Patton, Chinatown, Alien, Poltergeist, Gremlins, Hoosiers, Total Recall, Air Force One, LA Confidential, Mulan, the original 98 Mulan, and The Mummy. Damn. With the release of The Lost World Jurassic Park, his 97 opening fanfare for Universal Pictures was debuted. Wait, what do you mean, the Universal fan? Did he create it? Did he create the Universal, the dun 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 dun? That's the wrong one. That's 20th century. What is Universal? I'm glad I didn't keep doing the 20th century because Disney would have come for my ass very quickly. What is, now I'm gonna think about it. What is Universal's? It's Universal Fan Fair. I need to know. Where's Pierre Coffin? Oh, okay, no. So which one? I'll look it up later, I guess. Wait, Universal Fanfare, Jerry Goldsmith. Let me listen to this real quick. We're listening to this. Oh. Oh my god. This. Oh my god. I'm glad I went on that tangent. That is the best version of the Universal Studios fanfare I've ever heard. It is bone chilling. It is so smooth, but the drums. Oh my god! I also realized while listening to that, the second little tune I did was quite literally 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's bum bum bum. Anyways, I mean that was a tangent worth going on. The amount of times I said his name. I think I said it enough times it's gonna appear, like Beetlejuice. Yeah, we all know about Tangerine Dream. But yeah, this movie had too much going on. I'm not a fan of Tom Cruise. I don't like him. I don't think he's a fantastic actor. He is quite literally never the driving force in any of his movies. And I say that with my whole chest, not even Mission Impossible. He is never the driving force in any movies. He never has been. He's just a lead actor. He's a pretty boy. He's also like average height. So when I said that's offensive or that's oof about the characters, like Ridley Scott being like, we need to find people shorter than him, that's a really fucked up thing to say. Like, that's really offensive because Tom Cruise is actually average height. So, yeah. This movie is not that good. If you're gonna watch it, you're watching it for the campy, queer 80s fantasy movie vibes. But there's also a lot of better campy queer fantasy films from the 80s that you should watch over this one. But if you run out of them, I guess this is one. It's very Tumblr. And while I was reading the plot, it reminded me of this I guess it's a fan fiction, but it's a lore. It's made up lore, so I guess fan fiction about the backstory of Bowser, like the backstory of Bowser, which then led me on it was a TikTok cosplayer who made up this story, and they're going through the whole story that they've come up with of Bowser, and it involves Boo, and of course Peach and Mario and Luigi. Like, it's insane. It's very deep, but I'm enjoying it. But that led me on a whole rabbit hole on YouTube, and so I'm probably, well, from there I learned that the '93 Super Mario Brothers film isn't available to watch anywhere, so I'm going to buy the DVD as soon as I finish recording this. Like, I know shit. I put this in my Amazon cart before I started recording. If you would like me to review that next month for the personal review, let me know. I 100% will. I can only put one question on Spotify though, so we'll see. I mean, I'll also do like a poll. I can do polls on Twitter as well, and I can do a poll on Instagram stories, so keep an eye on those. But if you are listening on Spotify, there will be at least one question there. Yeah. What was I gonna say? My Letterboxd review. I don't know why I was about to close out the episode. I didn't even read my own Letterboxd review. So I gave it 2.5 peaches out of 5. I actually really thought about this. My first instinct it was to give it 3, and then I was like, this movie is pretty forgettable. It's a 2.5, and I gave it to 2.5 because of Tim Curry, the makeup, and the production design, and that's it. And partially Mia Sarah, because I don't like Ridley Scott. I'm not gonna lie. The only Ridley Scott movie I like is Gladiator, but like, who the fuck doesn't like Gladiator? But also, y'all know I'm a hoe for that ancient shit. So that ancient Roman Empire shit, I'm a hoe for that. So that's why I like Gladiator, not because it's Ridley Scott. I have a lot of issues. I have a lot of issues with Gladiator, primarily because of Ridley Scott. But I digress. That's a conversation for another day. My review, though, reads, I've given up on trying to understand these queer, campy fantasy films from the 80s. Yeah. I, like, it reminds me because, like, I watched Labyrinth for the first time a year ago, and I didn't like it, but I respected it because Jim Henson was a fucking genius. I'm not a fan of Muppets at all. At all. I don't like puppets. But I have so much respect for Jim Henson and like the beast he created. Just, it's insane. So I respect Labyrinth for that, but I don't like it because it's terrifying. It's not the goals of my opinion, but I would rather watch Labyrinth again. But also, when I did watch Labyrinth, I watched it on shrooms, so it was even more terrifying. I don't recommend watching Labyrinth while you're tripping on shrooms, but I would rather watch it tripping balls on acid than rewatch Legend anytime soon. If I do rewatch it, I'm gonna rewatch. I mean, if I do rewatch it, I'm gonna watch the director's cut. But I doubt it's gonna be any better. I doubt it. It might bump it up to 3 stars. Who knows? It might make it the same. It might make it less. Who knows? But anyways, some other Letterboxd reviews. Here's one from Sarah Squirm, who gave it 5 stars. It reads, quote, "Don't show a movie unless it looks like this," and is scored by Tangerine Dream with a credit song by Brian Ferry. This is what we call a glitter movie, end quote. After all that shit I just read about how Jerry Goldsmith got fucked over, I didn't read that review before I read it out loud. I didn't pre-read it. I just read it because it was short. Here's another 5-star review from Patrick Pryor. Quote, the best drippy goblin I've ever seen in my life. More fantasy movies with gross, drippy goblins and nightmare facial prostheses. The term is prosthetics. And elaborate, lush, otherworld sets and Tangerine Dream synth scores, please. So, end quote. So many of y'all are. Oh, the disrespect to Jerry Goldsmith. Is he still alive? How old is he? Oh, rest in peace. He died in 2004. Continuing on. This one's funny. It's 4 stars. I don't agree with that score, but it reads, quote, from Filmape, and it reads, quote, there are whale noises. No, there are whale noises playing over slow-mo shots of unicorns in a forest. How could this be any less than a 4-star movie? End quote. Because it's not good. That's why. Let me find a short review that isn't lengthy, because I'm seeing a lot of lengthy review. Oh God, that's a whole fucking essay. Y'all are putting too much into your letterbox reviews. Okay, here we go. This one I like already, from Jordan Beaumont Anderson. It is 3.5 stars. It reads, quote, what else do you people want? This fucking thing has Tim Curry and 1,000 pounds of sexy latex. Facts. Tom Cruise hugging a fox. A Tangerine Dream score played with one elbow. Lengthy unicorn pornography. That's true. I could eat her brains like jam. That's a quote from the movie. Tom Cruise wearing a scale mail dress. There's a fucking character named Honeythorn Gump. Mia Sara nailing her performance and still being the second prettiest. Second? Excuse you? A swamp witch played by Robert Interspace Cowboy Picardo. Tom Cruise squatting a lot. Billy Barty being a goddamn delight. A sex dungeon made by Disney. This movie has nothing to do with Disney. Shut up. You got that one wrong. That was way too angry. I'm sorry about that. An entire sequence devoted to throwing enormous frisbees. The plot of at least 3 D&D campaigns I've played. A way cooler fairy than that Julia Roberts Hook garbage, end quote. Don't do Hook like that. Don't do Julia Roberts like that. Yeah, okay, I'll read one more. This one's from Pushko. It's 2.5 stars. It reads, quote, third act was so lame and haphazard that all my interest germinated from its dreamlike and atmospheric alchemy kind of ebbed away by the end. Wish Ridley Scott was as discerning about it as he was for makeup and production design. Also, you can't ignore some untoward creepiness underpinned in this. True. End quote. So that's true. Also, you don't need to use that many big words. Okay, Criterion.com. Too many big words. We get it. You know big words. A film review. Using big words doesn't mean you have a good film review. It just means you use a lot of big words for no reason. Unnecessarily. You could have 1 or 2, but like that many. We didn't need haphazard, germinated, atmospheric, alchemy, ebbed, discerning, untoward, underpinned. No, we didn't need all that. Okay, Criterion.com. I'm not making fun of people who use big words. I just thought that was excessive. I do want to read one more though, because after I read that one, I didn't like it. I agreed with the rating. I just didn't like that, clearly, because I had an issue with the choice of words. But all of these are really long. But you get the point. I didn't like this movie. The only reason I would ever rewatch this movie is for Tim Curry, the makeup, and the production design, because that's the only thing that had any real energy put into it. That's facts. Anyways, thank you for listening. Really, thank you for listening. You can find me over at Lucky Peach, LBCKY Peach. In the description of the episode, there is a link tree. Don't ask about the progress of the website, but there is a link tree. That will take you to my Twitter, my Instagram, my TikTok, Letterboxd, Twitch, YouTube, Patreon at patreon.com/LuckyPeach. Thank you to my patrons as well. And the Discord to the podcast itself, YouTube. I don't know if I already said YouTube. I'm always missing something, but those are all there in that link tree in the description. Also in the description is a link to the stickers, which is Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/the luckiest peach. There is also a link to the Discord itself, a link to Patreon at patreon.com/luckypeach. Once again, thank you to my patrons. And a link to a Reddit page that has a bunch of other links of ways that you can help Ukraine. I will see you guys next week. Next week is a bonus episode. We haven't had one of those in a hot minute. Actually, when was the last time that we had a bonus episode? I don't know. Is this where I find out the last bonus episode was the one that I skipped in November? Let's see. It was. Yeah, okay, so the last bonus episode was supposed to be in November, but we all know how November went. We don't talk about that. So the last one was in August. This is our first bonus episode since August. Get excited. Get pumped. I will be ranking every A24 film that I have seen thus far. I have not seen their entire catalog, but I will just be reviewing the how many is it? I will be reviewing the 78 A24 films. I will probably have seen a couple of more by next week, but as of now, I've seen 78. I will be listing off my ranking of those films on the episode. So I'll see y'all next week for that. Once again, there will be questions on Spotify on the page for the episode, but you can also just tweet me or email me at luckiestpeach.com. No, luckiestpeachpodcast@gmail.com. I don't know what the fuck I just said. But yeah, you can email me that. I'll also put polls up on Twitter and on my Instagram stories. So yeah, thank you once again for listening. I'll see you guys next week. Stay peachy.